There are 4 German genders and 4 German cases. Technically, there's not 4 genders, there's only 3, but for the purposes of conjugations and, articles and adjective endings and stuff like that, there are 4 genders. Okay, plural, we're going to call it its own gender for the purposes of this argument. So, 4 genders, 4 articles. Does that mean you have to remember 16 different things for pronouns, adjective endings, articles, all that stuff? Not technically, actually. There's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of trends that you can learn. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Extra's Unedited Ideas. And today we're going to be going over my PowerPoint presentation that is meant to, that is meant to talk about the trends that you can learn to help you remember all this stuff. You don't have to remember everything. All you need to do is remember these trends, and it'll help you remember a lot. So, here's the overview. Don't worry, you don't have to remember any of this. You don't have to know any of this or understand any of this quite yet. We're going to get to it later, but I just want to give you a general idea of the overall chart. So, as you can see here, this is, when I say this is the overall chart, I mean this is talking about everything. This is talking about pronouns, or third-person pronouns, relative pronouns, definite articles, indefinite articles, adjective endings, definite, indefinite, and unpreceded. So here, oh, and noun endings. So as you can see here, this is technically a lot of the basic information that you need to know. So we have unique, 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 but some of these have asterisks. For example, this unique *1 is unique except the definite adjective ending, which is the same as feminine nominative. So in that case, if you remember the feminine nominative, then you'll know what this unique *1 is. That's like, okay, this is mostly unique except it copies one element from somewhere else. So this is like the basic overview things, but nothing, you don't really need to take away anything from this yet, especially because I say that it's unique, but I don't tell you what it is. But the biggest takeaway is the the non-masculine accusative is the exact same in all scenarios. There's no stars, there's no asterisks. In every which way and form, the non-masculine accusative is the exact same as the nominative counterparts. So the neuter accusative is the same as the neuter nominative, right? And for neuter specifically in the dative and genitive, it is the exact same as the masculine dative and genitive. So the masculine genitive, if it's des plus s, as an example, you'll know that the neuter genitive is also going to be des plus s. That's just an example. So this just gives you a general idea of how many rules there are and how many exceptions there are. But again, this is talking about everything. So once you remember the unique bits and then you remember these rules, you remember everything. Because otherwise you would need to remember 16 per each, and I believe there's 6 different categories. So 16 times 6 is what you would theoretically need to remember. But if you remember these trends, it'll help you speed up in memorizing everything. So, and I think I wrote it here, right? So just take note of the yellow SA nom. So right here you have SA nom, same as nom, and lighter yellow SA mass, which is same as masculine. That means that the non-masculine accusative in every and all cases is the same as, exact same as the, is in every and all cases the exact same as their respective nominative. So there you go. Oh, and on top of that, the neuter dative and genitive are always the same as their masculine counterparts. This essentially makes those units redundant, substantially decreasing the amount you need to remember. As long as you remember that rule, then you're good to go. So let's start off with the standard pronouns, aka the third-person pronouns. So German pronouns follow a similar pattern as the articles, though obviously not the same. Obviously, we haven't gotten to the articles yet, but this is just to give you a general trend. You may notice that the plural takes most of its pronouns from feminative, except for dative. That's a trend you will see, though not a rule. So as you can see here, the plural here is the same. And when I say it's the same as, it goes vice versa. If I'm saying that something else is the same as something, it's because more elements are applied to that. So, like, more of what I would consider to be the base. And of course, I'm arbitrarily saying what is the base or not, but there's logic with the reason why I say that something is the base or not. So, for example, here, um, the feminine plural is the same as the feminine sorry, the feminine plural. The plural nominative is the same as the feminine nominative. And of course, the accusative is always the same as the nominative for everything except masculine. So, that's kind of a given, right? So, in that regard, these are the same, right? And also, respectively, the feminine dative and genitive are the same as the plural genitive. Well, the feminine dative is more or less the same as the feminine genitive, except in all cases except one. So this helps you remember that, okay, you kind of have this little chart right here, this little line right here. Okay, this is the same as this, and this is the same as this, and this is the same as this. There you go. Oh yeah, and this is an important thing, right? Bold and underline equals a breaks trend. So as you can see here, masculine nominative does have a trend, but the fact that they have their own unique third-person pronoun is breaking the trend because, otherwise they do follow a pretty fair and easy to understand trend. But the third person standard pronoun is unique in that regard. Also, plural conjugations are different. I kind of, this should be pretty obvious if you know even anything about German, but you have sie, which are the same word, but the conjugations are different. So plural, it is sie sind, but for feminine, it is sie ist. So sie ist, sie sind. The words, the conjugations are different depending on whether it's feminine or plural, and that's kind of how you tell them apart. Otherwise, you wouldn't really be able to tell them apart. So yes, the conjugations are different, but the words themselves are the exact same. So just keep that in mind. Definite articles. So the definite articles show a great example of the trends and soft rules that German gender has. For example, the masculine definite article is the same as the plural genitive, which is something we will see a handful of other times later as well. Now this might be shocking to you, because there's this assumption that der by default is the masculine nominative and that is the default, right? I disagree. I actually think that the masculine nominative in this case is simply just copying the plural genitive, and we'll see why later. But I'm going to take that hard stance that the masculine nominative is not consistent in this regard, and it is simply just taking it from the plural genitive, which is also der. So this is probably something you've never really thought about, but I'll explain kind of why when we do when we show like all of the different examples together. So, of course, sticking with the trends, the plural nominative and accusative are the same as the feminine nominative and accusative, and the feminine dative is the same as the feminine genitive, and the feminine genitive is the same as the plural genitive. So, hopefully that makes sense to you. So let's give some examples of definite articles, right? I'm not going to go through every example for every single scenario, right? I'm not going to give an example for all of the adjective endings or relative pronouns and stuff like that. But, here's an example of definite articles, just to kind of get you to understand that, right? So the man knows the table from the father of the brother. So we have man, table, father, brother. Man is the nominative, table is the accusative, the father is dative, and brother is genitive. So der Mann kennt den Tisch von dem Vater des Bruders. So you can get this example right here, masculine, right? Der, right? Of course, it's the same as the plural genitive. So we have der Mann kennt den Tisch. As you can see, this is den Tisch, which is coming from here, the masculine nominative, den Tisch. Von dem Vater, again, this is dative, so this would be von dem Vater, as we can see here as dem, des Bruders. So, des Bruders obviously is genitive, and we have the S at the end here, because normally it is Bruder, or Bruder. I'm bad at Bruder specifically, it's a bad word for me. Probably should have chosen a different word, but whatever. Bruder is, by itself, it has no adjective ending, it's just Bruder. But because it's genitive, you add the S at the end. That is why it's des plus S, because you add the S at the end. So it could also, this applies to other words like manes, vaters, whatever. Sometimes it's S and sometimes it's ES. Like man, it's not mans, it's manes. So des manes in that example. But it would also be des vaters. So kind of get you that. And then just very quickly going to go over all the other examples. Das Kind kennt das Baby von dem Mädchen des Spiels. So the kid knows the baby from the girl of the game. If you don't know, in German, girl is neuter. It is not feminine. It is neuter because it has the schen suffix, which I think it's called like a diminutive suffix, which is neuter. Die Tante kennt die Frau von der Mutter der Schwester. The aunt knows the woman from the mother of the sister. Die Leute kennen, As you can see here, this is kennen, not Kent, because this is plural. Die Leute kennen die Eltern von den Schuhen der Geschwister. The people know the parents from the shoes of the siblings. Now, these sentences are kind of weird. They're kind of really oddball sentences. But the point is to kind of show you how the articles, the definite articles, change depending on gender as well as case. So, obviously, der coming in right here, der Geschwister, der Schwester, or der Mann. There you go. Hopefully that makes sense. Relative pronouns. So, if you don't know what a relative pronoun is, it's similar to whose slash what slash that in English. So, for example, you have the sentences, the people whose door was closed left the house. So in that instance, whose is the relative pronoun because it's relative to, the thing that you're talking about. So the people whose door was closed left the house. Or the person that was inside ate food. So in this case, that would be the relative pronoun. In German, those relative pronouns are also based off of gender and case. So for the most part, it is the exact same, as you can see here, right here. Relative pronouns are almost the exact same as the definite articles, but not exactly the same, since the genitive have their own unique words only used here. Because of that, the feminine dative and masculine nominative are not the same as the plural genitive. So, as you can see here, relative pronouns. This right here is bold and underlined because it's not following the trend of being the same as the plural genitive. In a lot of scenarios, the masculine nominative is the same as the plural genitive, but this is an example where it is not the same. So, same as feminine dative, as that's what FD stands for, same as feminine dative, der. As you can see here, most of the stuff is the same, right? As you can see right here, SADA, most of it is the same. However, the plural dative is different. Instead of it being den, which it was previously, as you can see here, den plus n, it is denen. The masculine neuter and genitive, the masculine and neuter genitive, words are hard, is dessen as opposed to des plus s. And the feminine plural and genitive is deren, which is, obviously not the same as der. So, like I said, mostly it is the same as the definite article, but not always. So, moving on to indefinite articles. Indefinite articles follow largely the same pattern as you'd expect, except that the masculine nominative is the same as the neuter nominative slash accusative. So, as you can see here, comparing and contrasting, right? We have everything here. So we have das, die, and all of these colors. Like, just basically remember these colors, right? But we go here, and all of a sudden, the masculine nominative is the same as the neuter. It is not meine, as you might expect it to be. It is mein. So mein Mann, as opposed to meiner Mann. So, yeah. And, let me also clarify. Why did I choose the word mine? Technically, mine isn't even an indefinite article. The reason why I chose it is because for consistency with plural. So, with the way that German is, the adjective endings and the way that the words are used is the exact same regardless of whether or not you're using mine versus whether you're using ein. In any instance where you would say ein, you would say mine. In any instance where you would say meinem, you would say einem. In any instance where you would say meinen plus n, you would say einen plus n. Now, why did I choose mine instead of ein? Again, because of plural. Because you can't have a plural of a singular, which is ein, right? Ein literally means one. So you can't have a plural of a singular. In all those instances, you would have to say kein. So it'd be keine Schuhe. But because that's an extra element that I don't want to worry about and don't want to have to go over every single time and say, well, it's technically different, because that kind of defeats the purpose of me going over everything, like the similarities between all that stuff. And because obviously for mine it is the same, that's why I chose the word mine instead of ein. But keep in mind that if you were to try to say one shoe or two shoes, you would have to say ein Schuh. Is it ein or eine? I don't know. It's either ein or eine, right? Or keine Schuhe for no shoes, plural. Okay. But other than that, as you can see here, it's mostly the same. Just wanted to clarify why I chose mine instead of ein. Adjective endings. Yes. this is where any and all consistency you've been noticing goes to die. There is so many inconsistencies with the adjective endings. There's a lot of N's, right? ENs to be exact. So as you can see here, most of these end with EN in some way, shape, or form. There are exceptions, of course, but this is the overall chart. This means we're talking definite, indefinite, and unpreceded. It is, you know, this is the overall chart. So here, for example, we have ER star 1 for masculine nominative. That means that it is ER except in the definite adjective ending where it is just E, or EN star 1 where it is EN except for the unpreceded where it is EM. So most of these are EN. So some of these are always consistent, right? So feminine nominative, it's always E. Same with accusative. Plural dative, neuter genitive, masculine genitive, and masculine accusative, they're always EN. Whether it's unpreceded, definite, indefinite, it's always EN. So there you go. But don't worry, we'll go into each one individually. This isn't the only thing I'm going to talk about here. Definite adjective endings. Yeah, look at that chart. I think this gives you a general idea of how all of the trends are broken. I think this is already showing you how all of the trends are broken. So as you can see, it's all either E or EN. Despite this, technically, a lot of the rules still stay consistent. So the feminine genitive is the same as the plural genitive. Right here, this is the same as. The feminine dative is the same as the feminine genitive. That is a general trend that we've been showing. It just so happens that it's not what you would expect. You would expect it to be ER, but it's not ER, it's EN. But technically, it is indeed the same as the plural genitive, and that's all that matters. So all you need to do is memorize the plural genitive, and remember that the feminine genitive is the same as the plural genitive in most cases, including this one. And as long as you remember all of the instances for the plural genitive, then you will remember them for the feminine genitive, except for the exceptions. Again, there are exceptions, annoyingly. Oh, speaking of exceptions, we are breaking our rule. This is the one and only instance. For the one and only time, the plural nominative and accusative is not the same as the feminine nominative and accusative. In all other instances, for pronouns, relative pronouns, everything else, the indefinite and unpreceded adjective endings, in all other instances, the plural nominative and accusative are the same as the feminine nominative and accusative. And this is the only time out of all of those instances where that is not the case. In this specific case, for the definite adjective endings, the plural nominative and accusative are the same as the masculine accusative, which is EN. There you go. So, a lot of blues and greens. Indefinite adjective endings. Now, this is a bit more of what we expected. Many more of the trends are coming back. For the one and only time, we have the feminine genitive not being the same as the plural genitive. So, right here, as we said, this is a trend that was established, that the plural genitive, and so many of the other instances, the plural genitive, in fact, all other instances, the feminine genitive is the same as the plural genitive. It is der, er, deren for the relative pronoun, and this is the one and only instance where the feminine genitive is not the same as the plural genitive. The plural genitive is er, but the feminine genitive is just en. I don't know why I say just en, but it is en. And going back to it, as you can see here, the masculine nominative, just like usual, is the exact same as the plural genitive. Not as usual, but around half of the time. There's a 50% chance that the masculine nominative is the same as the plural genitive, and of course, we are keeping with that trend here. Moving on, unpreceded oh, by the way, let me go back to it here, right? Going back to the definite adjective endings. This masculine nominative is the same as the feminine, but it's also technically the same as the neuter. So I could theoretically say that the masculine nominative definite adjective ending and indefinite article are the same as the neuter nominative, because they are. It is mine right here, and this is E right here. Of course, the neuter nominative is just stealing it from the feminine nominative and accusative, technically. But when I say that the masculine nominative is the same as the neuter nominative, I am also correct. So you could go either way with that. But as you can see here, a lot of the trends are coming back. But you want to see trends? Now we're getting real back into the trends. Kaboom! Unpreceded adjective endings. Now there we go. This is almost exactly what we would expect to see. going back, look at these colors, right? We have a lot, we gotten some purple back, we're getting some green back, we're getting some gray. Basically, the only thing that's really out of place is the masculine and genitive, the masculine and neuter genitive, which aren't es as you might expect it to be, but instead are just en. So, and you could also argue that this neuter nominative is technically really more or less because it's es, and es is very much a genitive, neuter genitive thing. But regardless, because there is no neuter genitive that says that it is es, we're just going to assume that it is just a copy of the original from the neuter nominative. So this is looking a lot more like it. The masculine nominative is the same as the plural genitive as it usually is. The feminine dative and genitive are the same as the plural genitive as they usually are. And the neuter and masculine dative have em, which is, again, a trend that we saw with like dem, meinem, all that stuff, right? So, unpreceded adjective endings looking a lot more like you would expect. So now we have the comparisons of the adjective endings. So if we compare the indefinite adjective endings compared to definite, as you can see here, a lot of this here is the same as the definite adjective ending. That's what SADAE stands for, same as definite adjective endings. So we have, you know, some new ones right here. We have the masculine nominative, the neuter nominative, accusative, plural nominative, and accusative, and genitive are all unique. They are different from their indefinite is different from the definite, but for most of it, it is the same. And then, whoops, accidentally clicked. And then for the unpreceded adjective endings compared to indefinite, again, it is mostly the same, except the feminine dative and genitive, and the masculine and neuter dative are different compared to the compared to the indefinite adjective endings. So overall, as a whole, it changes a lot between the unpreceded and the definite. The masculine accusative, masculine genitive, the feminine nominative and accusative, and the plural dative, they all stay the same. They never change. So if you remember one, like for example, just remembering that for the masculine accusative, for all cases, unpreceded, indefinite, definite, it is en. So just if you remember en, then boom, you remembered all of them. Same with the plural dative and the masculine and neuter genitive, it is always en. So just remember en and you remember them for all of it. And the feminine nominative and accusative is always e, as we talked about earlier. So now, this is the table of all of the unique parts. So this is very useful in combination of a chart that I showed previously, the overall chart. I think we're going to get to it in a second. But this is the table of all of the unique bits. So masculine nominative copies almost everything except the unique standard pronoun. So obviously they might copy it from different elements, right? They're not all copying it from just the neuter nominative or just the plural genitive, but they're copying it from somewhere else. However, they do have a unique pronoun er that is not used by anywhere else. So you say er ist. When you say er in that instance, there's no confusion. You know that you're talking about the third person masculine. The only kind of little quirk here is the relative pronoun for the masculine nominative and as well as the feminine dative, which is der, and that's technically unique. That is technically unique because no other relative pronoun, or let me rephrase that, the elements that are usually copied from the relative pronoun are not copied from anywhere else. So technically it is unique. You could technically have this cell right here with this color being right here because it is technically unique in that regard. But other than that, it is stealing something from somewhere else, always. Oh yeah, and as you can see here, the feminine nominative and masculine accusative are wholly unique. They do not have any inconsistencies whatsoever. They're completely exactly what you would expect. The neuter nominative is almost exactly what you would expect, except the definite adjective ending, which they take from somewhere else. The rest of everything else is fairly inconsistent. They take a lot of elements from other... Well, oh yeah, I guess the same could be said for the plural genitive, which is taking it from the masculine accusative for the definite adjective ending. But everything else is taking many, many elements from somewhere else. So here we go. This is everything all at once. Now, this is theoretically what you would need to remember if you weren't doing it the easy way, right? You would have to remember this entire chart. You know what I mean? As you can see, this is a lot theoretically, right? Like obviously with the colors, it makes it easier. That's the point of me having the colors. But theoretically, this would be, again, 6 times, what even is 16, right? Is this 6? This is 7. Sorry, 7 times 16. 7 times 16 would be a lot of stuff you would theoretically have to remember. I don't even know what that is. Pull out your calculator, tell me what the number is. I don't know. But 7 times 16, that's how much you would theoretically need to remember. But obviously, if you remember these trends, that's a lot less you need to remember. And also grouped by case. So these are the same charts. They're just grouped by case and grouped by gender. So, you know, masculine, nominative, masculine, accusative, masculine, dative, masculine, genitive versus masculine, nominative, neuter, nominative, feminine, nominative, plural nominative. You know, that's the only difference here. Um, oh yeah, here's some key notes, right? So here we have some exact copies. The neuter nominative, neuter accusative, exact copies. Feminine nominative, feminine accusative, exact copies. Masculine dative, neuter dative, exact copies. Masculine genitive, neuter genitive, exact copies. And then here we have grouped by similarity. So this is where we're going to have to see some similarities. So we have the masculine nominative, which is, you know, the der is coming from the, it's coming from 2 different elements. It's coming from the plural genitive and the neuter nominative, along with its own unique third person pronoun. But as you can see, der, mine, er. So, and so same with the plural nominative and accusative, which is mostly the same, except these e's are different right here. The feminine genitive is mostly the same as the feminine dative, except the deren and der. And it's almost also the same as the plural genitive, except for the er instead of en instead of en. Oh, and then the masculine accusative and dative is fairly similar, except as you can see here, this is in, this is in, this is den plus n, this is den nen, this is minen plus n. This as an example, right? So now we can actually talk about the rules to help. We've already talked about some. We've talked about some, but this is like the general, everything you need to know. So this is what you need to know if you want to help remember all of this stuff. There are 4 hard rules. These are rules that always apply, and 3 soft rules and rules with exceptions that you've already picked up on. Again, this is nothing necessarily new per se. We've talked about everything. We've already shown everything. Now we're just getting into the rules themselves that I came up with. These are rules and trends that I found. So, and again, I've already talked about this. So this will help you remember all of the pronouns, articles, adjective endings, and noun endings, or as I like to call it, stuffs. So P-A-A-E-N-E-S, whenever you see that, obviously it's going to be written down as P-A-A-E-N-E-S, but rather than having to say that every single time, I'm just going to call it stuffs. So whenever I say stuffs, I'm talking about the pronouns, articles, blah, blah, blah. And same with everything except the pronouns, that is just going to be tufts. It's going to be tufts, which is stuffs without the S at the front, because this is literally the stuffs, but without the pronouns. So, moving on to hard rule 1, the non-masculine accusative similarity rule. These are hard rules. Again, these are always going to apply regardless of whatever you're talking about. So, all non-masculine accusative stuffs are the exact same as their nominative counterpart. So if you want to get a good example of that, it's what we showed in the chart right here. So the neuter nominative is the exact same as the neuter accusative. The feminine nominative is the exact same as the feminine accusative. The plural nominative is the exact same as the plural accusative. And you can see that with this chart, and you can see that right here, yellow, the yellow SA nom right here. This is always the same. There's no asterisks, there's no stars. Regardless of what you're talking about, the non-masculine accusative is literally 1-for-1 a copy of the non-masculine nominative. And as you can see here, we have this brighter yellow SA mass. Well, hard rule number 2, the dative genitive neuter similarity rule. Oh, by the way, I might refer to these rules as what you see right here. So das D4. Obviously, das D4 is named after the fact that this is das D, right? That's what it's named after. So rather than having to say hard rule 1 or the non-masculine accusative similarity rule, which is a bit of a mouthful, I might just say the das D4 rule. So right here, dem des rule. It is simply just saying that the neuter dative and neuter genitive are the exact same as the masculine dative and masculine genitive. And as you can see here with this gray stuff right here, it is the exact same. So the gray and cyan SA mass on my overall chart, or the fourth and fifth set in my grouping by exact copies chart. So unique star 1, unique star 3 right here, SA mass. Hard rule 3. This is a bit of an observation more than anything, but take a look. For the feminine gender in the nominative and accusative case, all of the article endings end with E. So we have Z, D, D, eine, E, E, E. And I call it the all E's rule because, I mean, look at it, it's all E. So yeah, you can see that fairly easy in the uniques chart, which is right here, Z, D, D, D. Now, I would say that it's more of them all being the same ending as each other rather than saying that they're all the same as they all end with E. So, and they do all end with E, but when we get into the tests later, then they might not be E. But they are all the same though. Now, the masculine accusative word ending rule, or the all ends rule. Basically, the exact same thing. You just look below here. Oh, wait, these all end with N. How convenient. It is een, den, einen, en, en, en. If it's masculine accusative, it is ending with N. Same also, by the way, with the plural genitive as well. No, sorry, the plural dative as well. If we go back here. These all end with N as well. So enen, den, denen, meinen, plus N, N. So technically this also applies to the plural dative as well. But the focus here is for the masculine accusative word ending rule. So those are our 4 hard rules. You remember those hard rules? It'll help you remember all of that stuff a lot easier. Moving on. Oh, well, we have the bonus rule. Noun endings as a whole, you may have noticed this. But there are only 3 instances where we have any noun endings. It is in the masculine genitive, the neuter genitive, and the plural dative. Those are the only instances where there's going to be any changes to nouns. So we have den plus n, des plus s, and meinen plus n, eines plus s, minus plus s, sein plus s, sein plus s. I don't believe it is ihnen plus n or denen plus. Well, it's definitely not denim plus n. Well, maybe it is. Is it denim plus? It very well might be denim plus n and desen plus s, and it just didn't show up. If it is, whoops. But regardless, desen manus. Yeah, I guess it would be desen plus s, wouldn't it be desen manus? I don't know. Denen schuen. Huh. I don't know. Well, regardless, if it's not a plural dative, masculine genitive, or neuter genitive, then you're not using any noun endings. Those are the only instances for the noun endings. So now we're moving on to the soft rules. The plural, nominative, accusative, similarity rule, or the end E but one en rule. This just is for the plural gender in the nominative and accusative cases, the stuffs are the exact same as their feminine counterparts, with the exception of the definite adjective ending. That is the same as sorry, I worded that kind of weird. With the exception of the definite adjective ending, which is the same as the masculine accusative, that being en. So this right here, this bold and underlined, that is the one exception. I talked about that when we were talking about the definite adjective endings. This is the one and only time where the plural nominative and accusative are not the same as the feminine nominative and accusative. All other instances, it is the same. So right here, overall chart, SA star 1, SA star 2. Soft rule 2, the feminine, dative, genitive, similarity rule, or mostly R's but en. So for the feminine gender, in the genitive case, the stuffs are the exact same as the plural genitive, with the exception of the indefinite adjective ending, which is the same as the masculine accusative, that being en. As you can see here, SA star 4. In almost all instances, it is the same as the plural genitive. However, the also, this is wrong, isn't it? This isn't the feminine dative genitive similarities rule. This is the feminine plural genitive similarities rule. The feminine plural, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. The feminine plural genitive similarities rule. Whoops, typoed. Yeah, my bad. I messed that up. But here, the feminine genitive right here, this is the only instance where it is not the same as the plural genitive Other than that, just remember the plural genitive, and just remember that the feminine genitive is only different in the indefinite adjective endings. That'll help you learn these a lot easier. Soft rule 3, basically the exact same thing, but slightly different. For the feminine gender in the dative case, the stuffs are the exact same as the feminine genitive, with the exception of the relative pronoun, which is the definite article der, SA star 5 on my overall chart. So as you can see here, SA star 5, this is the same as star 5. Here, look at the relative pronouns. This is the one and only instance where the feminine dative is not the same as the feminine genitive, which is usually the same as the plural, except for, of course, what we just mentioned. But this is the only instances where these two, the feminine dative and feminine genitive, differ. So having them side by side, you can see feminine dative, feminine genitive. This highlighted area is the one instance where it is different, which of course is the relative pronoun. That's why it's a soft rule, not a hard rule, because there is an exception. Soft rule 4, the plural dative similarities rule, or den plus n. For the den plus n rule. For the plural gender in the dative case, the articles and adjective endings are the exact same as the masculine accusative. The only difference is in the noun ending, where you need plus n. Also, there's a unique word danen and enen. I don't know why I didn't word enen, but this is similar to comment 3 right here, because it is similar to the masculine accusative, as you can see right here. However, it is not the exact same. It is enen, not een. It is den plus n, not den. It is denen, not den. It is meinen plus n, not just meinen. And also, it very well could be denen plus n, and from the resources I looked at, it didn't show it. Keep that in mind. So, that is it. Those are all of the soft rules and hard rules, and even a bonus rule. So, now we're just going to go over some observations. I'm not going to mention every single one, because these are fun facts. You by no means need to memorize them. They're not really even worth going into much detail, but it's just kind of funny little stuff. So, and again, this is stuff we've already talked about, so I'm not going to go into it. But for the masculine genitive in the nominative case, 3/5 of the tufts, that being the definite article and the indefinite unpreceded adjective endings, are the exact same as the plural genitive, and the other 2/5. Oh, by the way, this is old too. This is before we added the relative pronouns. That's why it's or the pronouns at all. So that's why it's 3/5 rather than 3/7, because in this old list back when I made this was before I added the pronouns and relative pronouns. Observation 2, the masculine nominative adjective similarities rule. This is all ENs plus 1 for the masculine gender. In the accusative, dative, and genitive cases, the adjective ending is EN, with the exception of the unpreceded dative adjective ending, which is EM, most notable in the 2nd through 4th rows of my group by gender chart. So basically what it's saying here is that if it's not the masculine nominative, more than likely it's going to end with EN in all instances except one, which is the masculine dative, which is EM, which we've already shown. The feminine plural letter rule, you'll never see the letters M or S for adjectives, articles, noun endings. Notably, this doesn't include the pronouns because we have Z, which is the plural and feminine third person pronoun. The articles similarities as a whole, if it ends with the same letter, it's probably the same thing. We have der, and then minor, they both end with R. Das, minus, they both end with S, stuff like that, right? Well, I guess it would be das. No, that was a bad example. It wouldn't be das and minus. It would be das and mine. But the adjective, no, that's right. The adjective endings, most of them are ES, except for the definite, which is just E. Observation 5, the feminine plural nominative accusative and adjective endings similarities rule, or all E's but one. I think I kind of talked about it, but I basically talked about that earlier. And supremacy as a whole in the definite adjective ending. Most of them are EN, as we looked at in the chart. Most of them are EN, except the feminine, neuter, and masculine nominative, as well as the feminine and neuter accusative, which are E. Now, bonus observation. If you haven't noticed, the indefinite adjective ending is never unique. So just keep that in mind. There is never going to be an instance where the indefinite adjective ending is wholly unique and that it isn't the same as at least the definite or the unpreceded adjective endings. In a lot of scenarios, it's the same as both. Or not a lot, but in most scenarios, well, in some scenarios, it's the same as both. But in every scenario, it is the same as at least the definite or the unpreceded adjective ending. It is never going to be completely unique. Oh, and you like this little chart I made right here? This is a neat little chart right here. So we have, der and mine, and you can see kind of like the elements of the different things creeping about, and you can see just how much en there is. En is everywhere in terms of adjective endings. If it's not en, then it's probably e, but it could be em, er, or es as well. So let's circle back to the beginning. Remember this chart? Yeah. Hopefully this all makes sense now. You can see unique *1. That means that this right here is unique, except the definite adjective ending, where it's the same as feminine nominative. Remember, it was e. You can kind of look at that right here, where this is the green area right here. This is unique, except right here, it's e. Unique *2, unique except the definite definite and indefinite adjective endings, where it's the same as the masculine accusative. That would be this gray one right here. Whoops. As you can see here, this is mostly gray, except for these two right here, which are not unique. And you can kind of read all of these because, it's basically all the stuff that we already talked about. But, this in combination with all of the unique bits, you look at these two back to back, that's all of the information you need. Rather than having to remember all 62 or whatever, sorry, all 16 times 7 elements, you just remember this chart right here and all of the unique bits, and boom, you have all of the information. That's a lot easier to remember now, is it? Theoretically. So, just for fun, you can actually reduce the size of the chart. So you know how I mentioned that there are some elements right here, the SA nom and the SA mass? Well, since they're always the same, technically you could just get rid of them from the chart. I mean, they're the same, so this is an experiment where we reduce the size of the chart. So this is what the chart would look like. You have the masculine nominative, the feminine nominative, the plural nominative, and same with the dative and the genitive. Whoops, accidentally do that. However, we have the bonus here, and the bonus features the masculine accusative and the neuter nominative, which would be the only ones that are kind of weird. Now, obviously, the chart is a little bit harder to read, and it's a lot weirder, but technically you could make this chart and everything makes the same amount of sense because you don't need to have a specific like you don't have to have a specific cell for the feminine neuter. Sorry, the feminine neuter. My goodness, the feminine accusative, because it is always going to be the same as the feminine nominative. So if you remove that element from the chart, it feels like there's a lot less you need to remember, because there technically is. So looking at this chart, obviously this is not even full, right? Because there's this gray element right here. There's looking at here, right? This is normally a 16 chart 4x4, but you remove 5 elements from the table. 16 minus 5 is 11, so this is an 11 space chart. So there you go. This is a chart that is slightly smaller, but we can go deeper. Smallest tables feasible. Now this is obviously a really weird looking chart because it's, I mean, look at this, right? This is only two groups. We have group A and group B. And this is what it looks like, right? We have the masculine, dative, genitive, and nominative on the left, as well as the masculine accusative, and then we have the plural, nominative, dative, and genitive on the right, as well as the neuter nominative. Then we just write down the exceptions here because in a lot of the instances, the feminine everything. I don't know. I'm trying to think like neuter, nominative, or dative. The feminine is just the same as the plural. Not all, but in a lot of the instances. That's why we have the exceptions right here. So, just all you need to do is just look at this chart. Look at this chart right here, and then just remember that the neuter, dative, and genitive is the same as the masculine dative and genitive, as well as remembering that the non-masculine accusative is the same as the non-masculine nominative, and just remember that the feminine dative and genitive is the plural genitive, and that the feminine nominative and accusative is the same as the plural nominative and accusative. Just assume all of this information unless if stated otherwise via notes. So obviously we have some notes right here. So for example, right here, group A, group B, this is everything that you need to know. If you were trying to think like, okay, what is the feminine nominative relative pronoun? Well, it's just Z, because it's the same as the plural nominative. However, we do have the exception here where the feminine dative is der. So that's the one instance where it is not the same as the plural genitive. So that's why we have the notes. You could also, I say notes, you could also write down the word exceptions instead of notes, but yeah, notes. If there says nothing to note, that means that all of the trends and expected trends are being followed. So here we have the same thing. The feminine nominative and accusative is E, which is not the same as the plural nominative. The feminine dative and genitive adjective, indefinite adjective ending is en, which is not the same as the plural genitive as it usually is. So there you go. That is the smallest feasible chart. And here we have kind of like the different rows of the different things. So we have almost exclusively unique elements. As you can see here, there are some elements that are copied, like the masculine dative. Some elements are copied, but it's almost exclusively unique. Then we have borrows many elements from others. So for example, the feminine dative is largely the same as the feminine genitive. And this different color right here, this little blue, means that it's not, the blue means that it's being copied from the masculine accusative. And the same here, the green means that it's being copied from the, at least one element somewhere is being copied from feminine. So that's the color is there to let you kind of know, like, yes, it's the same as, but it might not be what you expect, because it might be the same as, but it's also the same as the masculine accusative in this instance, or the neuter nominative in this case. So the feminine dative and the feminine dative is almost the same as the feminine genitive, except the relative pronoun. The plural genitive is almost the same as the feminine genitive, except for this right here, the ind, the indefinite adjective ending, which is er. The masculine nominative is all over the place. Some of it is the same as the feminine dative, some of it is the same as the plural genitive, and some of it is the same as the neuter nominative. And the plural nominative, most of it is the same as the feminine nominative, but we have this unique definite adjective ending, which is the same as the masculine accusative, which is en. And these are the direct copies. These are all the same, exactly the same. So yeah, that's basically it for everything we've talked about so far. We're going to basically completely shift gears, but we will talk about changes from the previous version. So this is the previous version, the version I had previously. In the previous video, if you saw my previous video. It may or may not be unlisted. I might enlist it and put it in the description, but because I made some changes. So, the feminine dative was previously labeled as being the same as the plural genitive, and is now the same as the feminine genitive. So this right here, this SR star 5, this used to mean that it was the same as the plural genitive, but I have now rewritten it to be the same as the feminine genitive, and now obviously some of the rules are slightly different. The reason why I did that is because there's more differences between the plural genitive and the feminine dative than there are with the feminine dative and the feminine genitive. So if I say that the feminine dative is the same as the feminine genitive, with one exception, that's less exceptions to remember than saying it's the same as the plural genitive, but with two exceptions. Make sense? Yeah. So soft rule 2.5, that used to be a thing. There used to be a soft rule 2.5, was renamed to soft rule 3 and changed. Soft rule 3 is renamed to soft rule 4. So on the previous video, I had a rule soft rule 3. In this video, I renamed it to soft rule 4 because we now have a new soft rule 3, because soft rule 2.5 is no longer soft rule 2.5, it's now soft rule 3. So that was just to reduce confusion. Also, we have new coloration for unique relative pronouns. So again, in the previous video, the relative pronouns were going to be basically the same color as you would expect. So right here, this deren was the same color as the der. This denen was the same color as this den plus n. This dessen was the same color as this des plus s. I slightly increased the color, or slightly increased the brightness of the colors, because I want to signify that they are not the same as the definite article, because in most instances they are the same, but for those three specific instances I have the slight discoloration because I want to clarify that these are not the same. Oops, skipped over one. SA comment 3 was changed to ST comment 3. So previously it said same as, there was no similar to, but I decided to change it and add a new category called similar to specify that It is similar to, but there are more elements that are changed than you would expect. So same as means there's maybe one or two exceptions. Similar to means there are a lot of things that are copied from it, but there are plenty of exceptions. Oh yeah, we have new text for definite article examples. Previously it looked kind of weird, but I changed some of the words around and added new words. I think it was like I said Derman Kent Daneman, and it was 2 months. So to reduce confusion, I used Derman Kent Dane Tish. So there you go. Bold and underline for trend breakers. So as you can see in this video, we had the bold and underline over the cells that broke trends. Previously, that used to not exist. Multiple grammatical errors fixed. There are still, I think, a handful in this video and presentation, but it's a lot better for sure. So hopefully that helps. I came up with all these rules, or rather observations, just from looking at the tables. Full credit goes to me on everything. I came up with all of the rules, I came up with everything, except for perhaps the existence of the German language. Obviously, I didn't come up with German, I didn't come up with these rules, but I am the one who came up with these I'm the one who put into word these trends. Like obviously the trends existed, but I'm the one who pointed them out and showed them. Or at least, I came up with it myself. I didn't copy it from anyone else. If somebody else somewhere else did the same as me, good for them, but I came up with this specifically myself. So, next up is theory crafting and testing. So, theory crafting and testing. I made imaginary pronouns. Okay, so again, this is completely separate thing. So if you only wanted to learn the trends and you only cared about learning the trends that applied to specifically German itself, the video is over. But now we're going to be talking about theory crafting and testing. So taking the trends that you've learned and applying them. So even if you know every single, relative pronoun article for every single gender in every single case, maybe if maybe it'll help you if you do forget. Or, if you're learning German and you haven't learned it, then this is the opportunity for you to test test your ability to use critical thinking to understand the way that these trends work. So, I made imaginary pronouns, articles, and adjective endings that are meant to teach the general trends that German pronouns, articles, and adjective endings use. Using these fake words and the knowledge you gain from the trends, rules, and observations from actual German, you should be able to figure out these fake language as well. Again, this is a completely fake language, and theoretically you shouldn't be able to know what these are, but because they follow the same exact rules as actual German, you should be able to figure it out. So, oh, and the rules will not be exactly the same, but we'll get to it, right? So, question 1. These are, let's say in this fake language, that these are what the actual pronouns, articles, adjective endings were. So for masculine genitive, you have kes plus s, pros plus s, prosen, kes plus s. I think you're already starting to kind of see what I'm getting at, where it's taking elements from something else, but it's not the exact same. I guess this could be process instead of prosen, but whatever. And then all of the definite adjective endings are il. So il, il, il. Then we have chill, piel, piel, vil, il, il, il. For the feminine nominative, we have kvi, dri, dri, chi. Now, what is the definite adjective? Well, what are the adjective endings? What are they? And what is the plural anything? Now, theoretically, because this is a fake language, you wouldn't be able to figure it out. But you can. You can figure it out just because of it uses the exact same trends. So using your critical thinking skills, what are the yellow bits? What is the yellow question mark stuff? So I'll give you a second to try and figure it out before we move on. I'll pause it. I'll let you pause it, and then we'll move on. So 3, 2, 1. Here's the clue. We're not going to go over the answer yet. Here's the clue. Remember hard rule 3, the all ease rule, where all the adjective endings were the same as the final letter of the pronouns and articles? We're using that logic here as well. Also remember soft rule 1 and hard rule 1. So that would be the E but 1 EN rule and the das D4 rule. That will help you figure out the plural accusative. So again, let's go back to question 1. This is the chart. What is everything? Write down your answers in the comments or just write it down yourself. We are going to go over the answer in 3, 2, 1. Boom, here we are. So the plural accusative uses the definite adjective ending as the masculine accusative, but otherwise it is the same as the feminine nominative and accusative. So, um, oh, by the way, this is the feminine nominative and the plural accusative. So you got to remember, there's two different ways you can go about it, right? So, because this is the plural accusative, you got to remember that the plural accusative is the same as the plural nominative. Okay, that'll help you remember what this is. But in all instances, but in most cases, the plural accusative is also, as you can see here, this is qui, tri, he, the fem and I, right? In most cases, the plural nominative is also the same as the feminine nominative, except for the definite adjective ending. Now, how can you tell that this is E or I at the end? Well, again, remember the all E's rule, where all of the words ended with the same letter. So because this is qui, and this is tri, and this is he, you can tell, based off of the logic that German uses, that the final letter, which in German would be sie, die, meine, right? The final letter is going to be the same. The final letter of the words are going to be what the adjective ending is in all cases for feminine, nominative, and accusative. For plural, it is almost the exact same except the definite adjective ending, which is the same as the masculine accusative. So there you are. Hopefully you got that right. Moving on to question 2. Here, we're trying to figure out what most of the masculine dative is, as well as the neuter dative definite adjective ending. So the neuter dative is chloi, vloi, vloi, jaloi. Obviously, I keep saying independent. The indefinite adjective ending is il, and the unpreceded adjective ending is oi. Cool. For the feminine dative, you have mlop, klep, klep, mep, and ep. So, based off of these trends that we've talked about, can you figure out and remember what the masculine dative is? What is the masculine dative? Everything, except for the definite adjective ending. And based off of the information that you have from the feminine dative and masculine dative, can you figure out what the neuter dative is? Because you can figure it out based off of the trends that we've discussed. So, I'll give you a second to think about it before we go to the clue. 3, 2, 1. Whoops! What the hell did I press? Whatever. Hard rule 2, this is the clue. Hard rule 2, the dem dem des des rule will be particularly useful here. If you forgot about that rule, remember dem dem des des rule. So, give you another second to think about what the answer is. 3, 2, 1. Here's the answer. As you can see, the neuter dative is the same as the masculine dative, and it is the same in reverse as well. So, although in the rule, in the book, or in the not the book, in the chart, I said that the neuter dative is the same as the masculine dative, and that the masculine dative is the original. That doesn't matter. It also applies in reverse. So even though you didn't know what the masculine dative is, you know that the neuter dative is the same as the masculine dative. So as long as since you had the information of the neuter dative for everything except for the definite adjective ending, then you knew that this was chloi, this was vloi, this was vloi. That you knew it had to be because it's the same. And for the definite adjective ending, the basic rule that you understand applies, that the neuter dative is the same as the masculine dative. What is it? It's il, because it's the same as the masculine dative. So there you go. Question 3. Now this one is a bit of a stretch, so it's understandable if you don't get it. So the masculine accusative, we're bringing that back. So obviously chill, peel, peel. We've already talked about this. Now we have the neuter accusative. This is a new one. We have pech, kva, kva, moip, ah, and ah. Now this is a lot of different stuff going on here. So pech, kva, kva, moip, and ah. Interesting. So based off of this, can you figure out what the plural dative is? I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. You might get it, you might not get it. There's a bit of confusion. I think I kind of messed up earlier with a bad example, but this isn't specifically super straightforward. So, what is everything? Obviously, I told you what the definite adjective ending is and the unpreceded adjective ending, but what is the indefinite adjective ending and what is all of the other stuffs? So, here's the hint. Soft rule 4, den plus n rule, will absolutely come in handy, though it'll take some creative interpretation to get it. Moving on, or not moving on, but going back. Yeah, take a look. Chill, peel, peel, vil, What do you think in this fake language the plural dative is? Go ahead and write it down in the comments. And now we're going to go ahead and look at the answer in 3, 2, 1. Here we have it. As you can see, the adjective endings and endings of words will be duplicated at the end of the words as well. So instead of chill, it's chillil. Instead of pule, it's pule plus l. Instead of pule, it is pulil. Instead of vil, it is vilil. And obviously, the indefinite adjective ending is the same as the masculine accusative for the plural dative as well. So yeah, I just kind of threw that in there to be like, well, what do you think it is? Also, again, we talked about it. It's never unique. It's always going to be the same. There's never an instance where the indefinite adjective ending is different from both the definite and unpreceded adjective endings. And because they're the same on both sides, that gave you the information you needed. So moving on to question 4, the final question. This is the hardest one yet. There's going to be a lot of different elements that you're going to have to take into consideration. So we have the neuter nominative again, which we've kind of shown a little bit earlier. Pecha, kva, kva, moip, I, a. And then we have the plural genitive, which is mlop, kep, klep, klepil, which is a new one we haven't talked about yet, but klepil, mep, and ep. So based off of that information, can you figure out what the masculine nominative is? Oh boy, and there's a lot of different things you might need to try and remember. Let's take a look at the clue. There's no specific rule or trend that is going to help you here. That's true. You simply just have to look at the clues that we learned on the overall chart. So look at SA star comment 1 and recognize what belongs where. Also remember the. Wow, didn't even finish this. Just remember the, guys. I don't remember what was... The irony of the fact that I'm telling you to remember something and then I forgot to put it in the document. That is perfect irony. My goodness. So either way though, take a stab at it. Remember the colors. Remember what you're thinking in the inside. What is going to be in this fake language the masculine nominative? Everything except for the pronoun, which is fweep. I'll take a look. 3, 2, 1. Here we have it. The definite article is klep. The relative pronoun is klep because, again, klepil is specific to the genitive. So, in all instances, and anything other than the genitive, the relative pronoun is the same as the definite article, which is a fun little fact, right? Remember that? Then we have the indefinite article, indefinite adjective ending, which are borrowed from the neuter nominative, in this case, moip and e. And then for the independent, oh my god, how many times did I say independent? In the indefinite and unpreceded adjective ending, it is ep, just like in the plural genitive. So, there you have it. Did that help? Did the ideas and trends that were established earlier help you with these fake words? Hopefully so. Hopefully you got every single question right. Now, remember, all of these are fake words, sure, and, they're fake endings as well, that you will forget the second that you click off this video. You're not going to remember any of these fake words. You're not going to remember what the masculine nominative relative pronoun was. What was it even? The masculine nominative relative pronoun. That was klep, maybe? Let me actually look. It was klep. So I remembered it, but I made this chart. And the point isn't for you to remember it. The point is for you to remember the trends. The trends are what we learned. We didn't really learn these words. What we learned is the trends. So even though you'll forget these words the second you click off this video, you remember the concepts, and the concepts will help you remember actual German. So is there anything else to this video, or is that it? Yep, no, that's it. I hope you guys found this useful. I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys take care and peace out. Have a good one. Bye-bye.